Coming up next, trying to make our mark at a famous Route 66 landmark.
Now I can't see. Can you move my hair?
Then meet the very creative artist who turns those massive layers of spray paint into jewelry.
Oh, these are beautiful.
And it's no bull when they say everything is bigger in Texas.
Oh my goodness. Welcome to Small Town Big Deal. I'm Rodney Miller.
And I'm Jann Carl. Lately, we have been dedicating episodes to America's most famous road, Route 66. And it's turned into a very fun, although sometimes very windy, series.
And we discovered that all the states the route cut through have been very unique, but they've also got a lot in common.
That's right. Some cool history, unforgettable food, and some oversized marketing.
In Texas, Route 66 takes us 189 miles straight across the panhandle, where some tenacious towns have survived and others are hoping for a comeback.
Just after passing over the Texas state line from Oklahoma is the quaint Irish-themed town of Shamrock. It was here that the iconic Tower Station and You Drop In inspired a Hollywood director.
That looks just like Ramon's garage from Cars.
Now a visitor center and museum, you can almost hear the voices from the past as you walk through, along with some delightful present-day characters.
The building was built in 1936, and the last time they pumped gas was in 1992. And the cafe they quit serving in 96. Can I tell you a little story? When I first started working, and this lady come in and she said, "Ma'am, there is no place to put my credit card." I said, "Honey, we don't sell gas."
At 88, Hazel knows what she's talking about when it comes to the You Drop In.
Mixing the old Route 66 with the new, we got our music kicks on 66 at Spinning Jenny's, where vinyl is king.
Well, we are located next door to the You Drop In, which is a crown jewel of Route 66. So we get travelers coming through. We also have a Tesla charging station at the U Drop. So they'll hear the music that we're playing outside and look around like, what is that? And then they'll come in.
What they'll find is more than 10,000 albums, 6,000 45s, and yes, even for those who choose to collect them, about 1,000 cassette tapes.
The beat goes on in Shamrock, as do the uniquely Texas sightings. So it's more than worthy of a stop.
As we continue to head west in McLean, we see many signs of the glory days of Route 66. But one made us hit the brakes and turn in.
Devil's Rope Barbed Wire Museum? We've got to check this out.
Why did you decide to make a museum about barbed wire?
Well, how would you like to be driving down I-40 today, dodging cows?
Delbert's got a point. Barbed wire helped tame the West, keeping cattle where they should be, and more easily marking ranch property lines.
The first barbed wire, we believe, was a blacksmith who made a wire. It was slick wire, and he bent horseshoe nails around it. And he built this fence around his wife's garden to keep the cattle out. Now that was, we think, was in 1867. By 1878, about 10 years later, there were probably 80 barbed wires at least patented. Wow. Barbed wire gave us control of the land.
It's all over the landscape. In fact, when Route 66 was first created, when traveling from Amarillo, Texas to Tucumcari, New Mexico, you had to stop and open and close 19 barbed wire fences just to keep going.
And another thing that we give barbed wire credit for, it taught everybody how to cuss.
Is there a section here at the museum for that?
I truly believe that the Lord will give a free pass to anybody that ever had to work barbed wire.
As a farmer, I should love barbed wire. But I tell you this, love could hurt.
Along with the history of barbed wire, part of this museum houses the first Route 66 museum, preserving its history for all to enjoy even today.
So the Devil's Rope Barbed Wire Museum is proof positive you need to slow down, enjoy the journey, take the off-ramp.
Next stop, Allen Reed. This Route 66 almost ghost town still has some great photo ops, like the restored Bradley Kaiser Super 66 station built in 1930, and the oldest cemetery and church on Route 66 in Texas, established in 1904.
But if an authentic ghost town is something you are just dying to see, stay tuned.
A stop in Jericho is next, where we meet the couple who actually bought this deserted town, but they have some big dreams to bring it back to life.
Then,
Oh my goodness.
it's a showdown of Epicurean proportions.
Oh my goodness.
This is a steak throwdown, and I am gonna win.
You're going down, Carl.
Not a chance.
You're going down.
There's a lot at stake when we come right back.
Welcome back to Small Town Big Deal as we continue our adventure on Route 66 in Texas.
Moving east, we stop at a ghost town, but one that has a new spirit of rejuvenation. Jericho started as a stagecoach stop, and then the railroad came through, followed by Route 66.
But when it rained, some of their unpaved sections of the route turned to a nearly impassable muddy mess. The locals made money by pulling travelers out. Rumor has it that some locals watered down the road to increase their business.
All that remains are a few broken down buildings and a partially paved country road. But an amazing couple with ties to the area has decided to bring Jericho back to life.
We wanted a place where we could settle and where we could build and raise our families. Now we get to have something bigger than what we ever thought that we could share for not just with our families, but for generations to come.
Now they own 72 acres of the old township, but there's a lot of work to be done.
Get it cleaned up, get it safe to walk around, so people will want to come by here and get a little piece of history, see what stuff used to look like back in 1926.
You know, you have to have a lot of passion to succeed at anything. And I think Blair and Blanca have just that.
The last family to live here in what would have been Jericho was in 1974.
It's our job and responsibility to continue to love the property, share with the world. This is something definitely that's a field of dreams for us.
From the efforts to reconstruct Jericho to a water tower that looks like it's on its last leg, Texas is a state filled with grit and gumption.
In the early 1980s, when Ralph Britton wanted to attract motorists to his truck stop in Groom, Texas, he came up with a cockeyed idea. After buying an old water tower, he intentionally installed it at a curious 10-degree tilt to make people want to stop. It worked and helped him gain many customers.
Unfortunately, a fire caused the truck stop to close about 5 years later. But to this day, the Britton Leaning Tire of Texas is still standing. Sort of.
Another testament to the slightly off-balance brilliance of quirky marketing is just a little further down the road. That's where you'll find 5 Volkswagen Beetles planted nose down into the ground.
Bug Ranch in Conway, Texas was created in 2002 as a parody of Cadillac Ranch, a more well-known and popular Route 66 attraction. The buried bugs were an effort to attract people to the few remaining businesses still open even after I-40 replaced Route 66 and moved traffic more than a mile away. Now, just a few miles west of Conway, we hit Amarillo and see a 60-foot tall cowboy and a huge bull welcoming us to the Big Texan Steakhouse and its Cowboy Motel where we stayed the night.
Since 1960, the steaks and down-home hospitality has been the big draw. And get this, if you can eat one of their 72-ounce steaks and all the fixins, you get it for free.
Who came up with the idea of the 72-ounce steak?
All that credit goes back to my great parents that started this place. My dad and mom were fascinated by how these cowboys would come in, and these guys would sit there and eat a huge amount of food. It would draw the crowds around. My dad, being the tourism genius he was, he asked them one time if they all wanted to kick in $5, and whoever could eat the most in a 1-hour time period would get the money in the hat.
And the legend was born.
That's exactly right.
How many people who try succeed?
It's about 1 out of 10.
1, eat.
What the funny part is, it's women that will compete. 1 out of 2 will finish it. The record holder is a woman, and she finished 2 in 1 sitting. Then she turned around and bet us $5,000 that she could do 3 of them in under an hour. We lost $5,000.
Are you kidding me?
Let's go get some steak, all right?
Let's get some steak, all right?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
We got a couple folks up here that are interested in trying to talk us out of a 72-ounce steak. They have 1 hour to eat 4.5 pounds of steak.
Let me make it clear, it's not just the steak. You have to eat like the salad and a shrimp cocktail and 2 sides. I think my sides are gonna be Pepto and Bismol.
Wow. Okay, I like steak, but 72 ounces?
Now, you guys only have an hour, so if you might want to consider getting going on this at all.
Danny, could we have 6 plates?
Oh, no, this is just for you. He's already...
I'm getting out my wallet. The crew is gonna have steak for the week.
Yep, the only way we're going to be able to tackle 144 ounces of steak is to share it with the Small Town Big Deal crew.
And we have more of Texas to share.
From jewelry made from the most unusual material
To adding a little art of our own.
and meeting an artist of homemade pies. Stay with us. We'll be right back with all of this and more.
Small Town Big Deal coming at you from Cadillac Ranch, Texas.
Welcome back to Small Town Big Deal, where we're more than halfway across Route 66 in Texas. We've just finished 2 legendary-sized steaks in Amarillo, but there's so much more to see.
That's because Route 66 runs right down 6th Avenue in what is now a very cool village that celebrates the arts, antiques, and all things Route 66.
Not too far away is Cadillac Ranch, the famous stop on Route 66 you might already know about. Here you can spray paint your own art, signature, love note, anything you want on 10 Cadillacs buried nose down all in a row.
What you might not know is a very creative artist is creating something very unique with all these layers of painted fun when they start chipping and falling off.
What first inspired you about Route 66?
In 1996, we rode from Chicago to Santa Monica with Harley Owners Group, and Michael Wallace, the famous author from Tulsa, who's the voice of the sheriff in the movie Cars, was our tour guide, and we've been hooked ever since. The feeling of freedom of the open road, Americana, nostalgia, romance, that's what 66 is about.
This is just layers of paint.
Raw chunk of paint. Over 1 million people a year spray paint graffiti on those cars, and it gets 8, 10, 12 inches thick.
And then it just falls off.
People climb around on those cars and knock off chunks.
Is that from the paint?
Oh yeah.
That is it? Look at that. Where did you get the idea to turn it into jewelry?
Well, about 9 years ago, my wife and I were out with her grandkids, Cadillac Ranch, and I found these pieces laying around on the ground. I said, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this stuff, but I'm gonna create something with it. So what I do is I just grind this down until it gets like this.
Smooth.
Smooth.
Look at that! After Bob gets them into the shapes he wants, he glues them into silver settings, another step he let us try. Then they soon become wearable art.
Oh, these are beautiful. It's so seldom that you see something that you have never seen before. And this is something I have never seen before.
Well, I'm glad.
And while we're on the subject of never before seen things, Bob agreed to take us to see those now famous Cadillacs sticking up out of the ground in the middle of a field.
Well, Stanley Marsh III commissioned the Ant Farm, which was a group of artists out of San Francisco, to do this in 1972. Took them 2 years to complete the project. Some people hate it, some people love it. It's a piece of sculpture, but 1.3 million people a year can't be wrong.
You know, I'm thinking about opening a paint store across the road.
Not a bad idea.
Look at that. Look at the layers of paint right here. Wow.
So we walked around those 10 half-buried Cadillacs and found people from all over the place.
It's a beautiful road. It's very, very fantastic.
The wind's blowing pretty good.
And then finally did our own graffiti on the front car on a very windy Texas day.
Oh my gosh, the wind.
Getting blue on my red.
Oh, I am. I'm so sorry. And now I can't see. Can you move my hair? Ah! No, don't move my head. Ah! Woohoo!
After leaving our mark, we take our spray cans and head to the Cadillac Ranch gift shop and RV park.
With a howdy from a big cowboy to guide us in, it's another tribute to great big marketing on Route 66. Then we continue to head west.
About 30 minutes down the road, we found the small town of Vega, whose big deal is the history it keeps in its museums. Worth the stop for a quaint dose of Route 66 history you won't get in larger towns. Then, moving on westward, we got to the middle of our whole Route 66 adventure.
So we have been on Route 66 since Chicago, seen so many cool things. We've had a lot of good food. So I'm thinking we shouldn't have too much further to go, right?
We got a long way to go.
But don't despair. At the Midpoint Cafe, right across the street, there is a delicious discovery to be made.
I bought the Midpoint Cafe because I love to deal with everybody, the people from overseas, the people down the route. It's all just amazing. This is the Flo's VA Cafe in the movie.
The movie Cars scores again, and our taste buds score when we learn of Brenda's specialty, pies.
Well, I make them a lot, every single night. My favorite one is the Tennessee Whiskey Chocolate Pecan.
Now that's worth the drive.
With Route 66 only crossing the panhandle of Texas, we're already at the end, where the once busy town of Glen Rio sits silent.
Although now a ghost town, you can view the grand old station, cafe, and motel that are still standing and imagine the former vitality of this small town. The Texas Route 66 Association looks after this last stop in Texas, depending on which way you're going.
Like most towns, it was a railroad town, and built a depot, and of course when they build a depot, the town springs up.
We come out here to take care of the buildings like this because we've just seen the decline of the buildings and the towns along the route.
We just want to try to preserve it for the next generation, the next traveler, just so that they can see and maybe get a glimpse of what this town used to be like.
So you know Route 66 can take you from Chicago to Santa Monica. What you don't know is the really cool places it's going to take you along the way.
We hope you've enjoyed this special Route 66 Texas episode of Small Town Big Deal. You know, Jan, I've always heard things are bigger in Texas, and after seeing that 72-ounce steak of the Big Texan, I believe it.
And how about the visionary couple that bought the entire town of Jericho?
Or the Cadillac Ranch, or the Barbed Wire Museum.
And you know, we are just scratching the surface of all the amazing things along Route 66 in the Lone Star State. But you know what? It's time to bid farewell to Texas and step over the state line and say hello to New Mexico.
I'm Rodney Miller.
And I'm Jan Carl.
Join us again next week when once again we celebrate the great stories from across America.